podcast. Mike Wilner with you, and we'll plug the pod coming up in just a sec too in the articles. But right off the jump here, I just want to get the feeling, the sense of the fans in Toronto right now. And Mike, we appreciate the time to bring you back on here. But what's going on out there in Toronto right now? Not just for losing out on a player, but for many fans thinking they actually won the player.
Yeah, it was a great 2 hours when we had him there. It was Shohei Ohtani was a Blue Jay for as long as Arson Judge was a San Francisco Giant, and it was a good time. You know what? Right now, the feeling is disappointment. The feeling is hurt. The feeling is the Jays got played and used, and there's some anger too because there have been at least a couple of major national writers who have written columns about how Shohei Ohtani signing with the Dodgers is good for baseball and saying outright, not just hinting, but saying outright that Shohei Ohtani signing with the Blue Jays would have been bad for baseball, which is to me a ludicrous position to take. And there's been a lot of seemingly American ignorance about what goes on up here and what kind of place this is. And I think that's got people more upset than any of the other stuff.
Why would it have been bad? You're up there all the time. Why do you think that's the perception? Somebody that played there, somebody that was drafted by the Blue Jays, I see it different, but why do you, as a Canadian, as a Toronto native, why do you think people see it as a negative?
I think a lot of Americans honestly just see Canada as that tiny little strip on the top of the weather map where it's cold and it snows all the time. I've never been asked that typical question of do you guys have electricity up there, or does everyone have an igloo in their backyard and stuff like that. But there were points being made by people who were saying Shohei Ohtani is not going to like the weather in Toronto when it's 90 degrees here in June and July and August. We don't get snow in the summer. There's no snow on the ground right now, and it's the middle of December. I think there's a lot of that. There's a lot of people who don't understand just how big a city Toronto is. We are the fourth largest city in North America. And there are people who don't understand how cosmopolitan a city it is, all the things to do here. I think the perception for most Americans is that Canada is just some other place way up there where it's really cold all the time and it's clean and the people are nice. And there's a lot more to it than that.
Hey, Mike, part of the hurt is the reporting here. You're at the Toronto Star. Are there rules for what you can and can't put out there based on gathering information? Are there rules? I mean, I know there's not obviously rules within all writers everywhere, and the lines are starting to get blurred and people just throw stuff out there. And I truly felt also like on Friday, the sourcing was even getting pretty weak, where it was just like, oh, I'm seeing other fake reports and I want to be first. And I feel like I have a 50-50 chance. So I might as well just say the decision has been made already. So I'm wondering, do you get any guidelines at the Toronto Star in terms of how you should conduct any business from sources?
I mean, you want to be right, right? This is the thing. I'm new to the world of sports writing. I've only been with the Star for 3 years, and for the 25 years before that, I was in broadcasting. But I was, and I'm not a guy who breaks a ton of stories. I think the last story that I broke was when Pat Henkin retired, and that was in 2002 or 3 or 4. Um, but everybody wants to be first, and it seems like fewer and fewer people are as concerned with whether or not they're right. But I that might be a bit of an overstatement. I think that there's a rush and there can be a frenzy, and judgment can get lost. But as far as guidelines are concerned, I think be right is the first one. And obviously the most important one. And I know that there are, like you said, there are people who say, well, I got a 50-50 chance at this, right? I remember the guy who broke the story of the strike being over in 95. No, I think it was a later one. No, I guess that was the last big one. The strike being over in 95. I have my dates wrong, but anyway, somebody who broke a huge labor-related baseball story up here in Toronto was the first one with the information. Was also somebody who spent a whole lot of his career just throwing crap at the wall and hoping that it would be right, and that one was right. And it's incredibly hard for me to believe that that came from actual knowledge and good sourcing, and wasn't just, hey, it feels like this thing's about to happen, so I'm going to go be the first one out there. Um, and it's too bad that that can happen. I know John Morosi. I don't know JP Hornstra. It feels like at least Morosi got used, and it's unfortunate. But I think that it was easier to tell on Friday who was really diligent about what they were doing and concerned about being right than who was just trying to be first. And um, I got a phone call on Friday afternoon from someone who I hadn't heard from in years, who said, "Hey, my buddy's in catering. Yusei Kikuchi just made a reservation for 50 at a high-end Japanese restaurant in Toronto, but I'm not going to put that out there unless I can find somebody else who can tell me the same thing, who's a little closer than, hey, I have a friend who does this." I'm sure the person who called me absolutely believed that it was true, but I mean, you gotta, before we're gonna put it out there, you got to get a little more meat than that.
For that time span, however long it was, 2 hours, one day, that Shohei Ohtani was going to be a Blue Jay, did Blue Jay fans think it was World Series time? Like this was going to be 92, 93 all over again? And if it was, the team is essentially the same minus their DH. So can they go out and fill that role?
I think people thought this is exactly what the Blue Jays needed to have happen after what was an extraordinarily disappointing 2023 season, and a 27-hour playoff run that ended with an embarrassing uh, binder and khaki related pitching move in the fourth inning of the last game of game 2 of their playoff series, in which they scored 1 run in an entire series. I don't know if people were thinking World Series, but I think they thought it was a lot more of a possibility than it had been before, and it was really exciting to think that you know an easy argument to make that he's the greatest player in the history of this game was going to come to Toronto and going to suit up with the Blue Jays and be here for a decade plus. I think when people found out about $700 million, a lot of them, stopped in their tracks a little bit and said, whoa, I'm glad they didn't do that. But at the same time, they would have been thrilled had it happened anyway. But they got a little bit more work to do than just the DH, right? They lost their third baseman, they lost their center fielder. Whit Merrifield's gone too, and he was a second baseman and platoon left fielder for a lot of the season. So I think right now the sense is the Jays are in a lot of trouble because Juan Soto's off the board. Jamer Candelario even is off the board. There's no big splash left on the free agent market as far as an offensive player is concerned. So I think people are concerned that they're gonna have a hard time even getting back to the 89 win team that made the playoffs by 1 game that they were last year.
And I mean, AJ, good thing they're in a pretty crappy division, right? They're in the AL Central, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, they're in the AL East where it's a little bit tougher, and you see what the Yankees went and got Soto. They're allegedly the favorites for Yamamoto. What, you said there's no one out there. Cody Bellinger would be a nice fit if play center field out there. He's left-handed. He'd fit nicely, I feel like, in Toronto. There's other moves they can make. What is the move though? I know you've mentioned like the Soto. It would have been nice to see Juan Soto as a Blue Jay, but then they would have had to pay him, right? Because they would have had to mortgage their future in order to get him. The Yankees scooped him up the Jays now are kind of like, what do we do? Because now does this free up money to sign Bichette and Vlad? Do they go get Bellinger? Do they go get Stroman? Reunion with Stroman. I don't know. There's some names out there that are, Montgomery, things like that. What can it be just because they didn't get Ohtani? Can they go get 4 or 5 guys and try to make up for something? I don't know. It's just such an odd situation for a team like the Blue Jays who have money and players. Once they actually get there, a lot of them love playing there. So what's the next move for the Blue Jays?
Yeah, there's only been 1 or 2 people in the 35 years that I've been covering the team who really hasn't liked being here. It's true. Um, I think that Bellinger, the 2023 Cody Bellinger, the 2019-18 Cody Bellinger is absolutely a perfect fit for the Blue Jays. The 2021 and 2022 Cody Bellinger certainly is not. And as great a year as he had last year, I don't know which Cody Bellinger you're getting. Like, is he fixed? Is this him now? I've heard talk about the swing change, but does that hold? Do pitchers adjust back and he winds up being all but unplayable again? Like, he's looking for a major commitment over a very long term, and I don't know how comfortable I am that he's going to be the guy he was last year and not the guy he was the year before. So I don't know what the Blue Jays think about that, but they certainly can afford to bring him in. I don't think that they've got the $65 million or whatever it was that they were willing to pay Ohtani to spread around. I think when I was on with you guys last week, I said they had like a unicorn budget for Ohtani, and that goes away if he's not there. I mean, they're still going to pay, but not to that extent. I don't know how much they're going to go swimming in the starting pitching market, because they had 4 guys make 30 starts last year, all of whom are coming back, plus Alek Manoah, who they hope for a bounce back from. And do you sell a starting pitcher on, hey, come and be our 5th starter? And Alek Manoah is going to challenge you for a job, and the guy finished 3rd in Cy Young voting 2 years ago, so he might be able to beat you out. I don't know if that's so attractive. But then if you sign a starter, a good one, maybe that frees up a Bassett or a Kikuchi for trade to bring you in a bat or 2 that you need. I really do think that the Blue Jays' best option is to go out looking on the trade market, to go talk to all the teams who've lost out on their TV money, whose regional sports networks have failed, and who are kind of in limbo as to how much they're going to have next year and how much they're not going to have, and offer to take some contracts off their hands, and let's go shopping there. Call the Padres about Bogarts and Machado. Call Cleveland about Jose Ramirez. I know he's got a no trade, but lots of guys who have no trades have been traded before. See what you can do. Flex those financial muscles, take some money off of people's hands, and get some bats.
So are you going to be disappointed as a Canadian, as a Blue Jay fan, if Rogers, the monopolistic communication company that is in Canada, doesn't fork out some serious cash since they had their opportunity here? Everybody was in on it. Everybody has an opportunity to go over what the Dodgers were going to pay. But now you have extra motivation to sign your Bows, your Vladdies. You have extra motivation and you have the extra cash. Are Blue Jay fans calling for that? Are they calling for Rogers, who, if you want to talk to anybody or have any cable or have any communication in Canada, Rogers is getting some of your cash?
Yeah, almost. Rogers or Bell is getting your cash if you want cable or internet or anything in Canada. It's true. I think Blue Jays fans as a group are sort of down on Vladdy right now. I don't think a huge long-term commitment to Vlad at big money would be something that people would be all that excited about coming off the year he had last year. He's 2021 was the high water mark, but he was only 21 years old or 22, and he's gotten worse each year since. Bo Bichette's gotten better each year. And I think he's sort of the darling of Blue Jays fans right now over Vladdy, though I love what the possibilities of Vladimir Guerrero are, and what he has accomplished, and I think will accomplish. And they're both still just babies. But I think it's been in the planning for a long time to try to lock them both up. I don't think Vlad would sign a long-term deal right now, coming off the year he did, if that was used against him in the overall dough. And I think Bichette would, but I think improvements are needed. And I think you got to get that done first, whether it's bringing Matt Chapman back or making a trade for a Jose Ramirez, going out and getting a big slugging left fielder with Dalton Varsho moving to center, getting a DH. Joey Votto would be the fun move. But I don't know how much you can count on Joey Votto. I think that if he comes here and manages to stay healthy, he could have one big send-off season, and it would be a lot of fun because he grew up with 20 minutes from the Dome. But I think they have to get those things done first before they look at tying up a lot of money in Bo and Vlad, because there's still a possibility that, if 2024 doesn't go well, then you blow this whole thing up and start again, or the front office loses their jobs and somebody new comes in and either blows this whole thing up and starts again, or figures out another way to do it. I think Bo and Vlad's future in Toronto is highly contingent on how well the Blue Jays play this season.
All right, here's a lineup of 3 guys that are all going to be coming out at the same time. Who gets a louder boo? Shohei on his first day back, Rougned Odor, or Ross Atkins?
I don't. First of all, I don't know if Shohei is going to be back in the lineup yet in April, so he might not be here when the Dodgers come to Toronto. But I would boo his agent more than I would boo him. I think that, the Jays got used as leverage, which is astounding to me, because I said last week, what's the difference between $580 million and $615 million? But I mean, obviously, the difference between 620 and 700 is incredible, and I have a feeling that no matter what the Jays offered, the Dodgers would have beaten it. If the Jays had gone to 700, the Dodgers would have gone to 750. And if the Jays had gone to 750, the Dodgers would have gone to 800. And it wouldn't have mattered because Ohtani wanted to be there anyway. And his agent was trying to get him the most money he possibly could, and he did. So I would boo the agent. I think at this point in Toronto, Ross Atkins gets bigger boos than Rougned Odor. And because I think that the opportunity for a big off-season splash is gone, I think no matter what happens, Ross Atkins gets booed on opening day if he's out there, which he won't be, and he won't be introduced. But winning cures everything, but just making the playoffs does not cure everything, because people are left with still a really, really bad taste in their mouths over last year.
Well, they're on the clock right now. The free agent frenzy is going to begin here soon. So, Mike, we appreciate you jumping back on soon after joining us the first time around after all of this. And you can follow Mike at Wilnerness, also his articles in the Toronto Star, and check out his podcast at Deep LF Podcast at Deep Left Field. There it is, nice and pretty. Mike, we appreciate the time, man. Thanks so much for joining us again, and hopefully better times for Jays fans soon.
Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be interesting and it's going to be fun, but always happy to be with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Mike. We'll be right back on FT Live.